Beyonce returning to her hometown of Houston, and it was reported that she was going to be performing. USA Today said, watch live. Beyonce returns to hometown of Houston to perform at Kamala Harris rally. Beyonce is set to perform live at a Kamala Harris rally in Houston on Friday afternoon. The Houston-born singer gave the Harris campaign permission to use her song Freedom months ago. So the media definitely said that the performance was happening. Vanity Fair. Beyonce expected to perform Freedom at Kamala Harris rally. Politico. Harris unleashes the star power of Beyonce. It was just over and over. But then she didn't perform. So you have to ask yourself, what happened? Was she never meant to perform? How did the media get it wrong? Maybe they just assumed she would. Maybe they were misled by the campaign. Maybe they coordinated with the campaign to mislead the public. There's a few options. But Beyonce Gate is real. And at the end of the day, people were pissed.
Wait a second. Did you just say the Democrat Party was misleading the public?
I know it.
That doesn't sound right.
I know it.
Wait, hold on.
I know. It's shocking. It's shocking. And then they just leaned on abortion during the rally. That's what they were talking about, which is it's interesting to point out. Both rallies, Trump had one in Texas, and Kamala had one in Texas. Both rallies centered around the loss of children, except at Kamala's rally, they were celebrating it, and they were, just overly pro-abortion. And at Trump's rally, they were talking about Jocelyn Nungaray, and her mother was on stage talking about how she lost her daughter because of Kamala Harris's policies at the border. Two stories, very, very different, both including the loss of children. Kamala, though, just a hard weekend for her. Hard weekend. Mark Cuban was doing his surrogate things, and he was on ABC News, and he says that he thinks Kamala will win. That's what he said. He said he thinks Kamala will win because she's a dynamic speaker, and anytime she's up there, the crowd is engaged.
So you've been out there campaigning with Kamala Harris. How's it looking? Is she going to win?
I think so, for sure. I mean, when you go to one of her campaigns, she is just a dynamic speaker. I mean, the crowd is engaged. The energy is off the charts. I mean, if that's any indication, she's going to win easily.
Okay, if that's the indication, she's going to win easily as she's being booed mercilessly in Houston. And it wasn't just Houston. It wasn't just people that were upset about the lack of a Beyonce concert that they were promised. This happened in Kalamazoo also. Kamala Harris being heckled in Michigan. And I believe this was pro-Palestinian protesters. It's a little bit hard to tell exactly what they're yelling, although I do bleep out one portion of this because Kamala was called a real piece of bleep.
We are fighting for America's future, and we understand the opportunity we have before us. Turn the page on the fear.
Yeah, Mark Cuban's right. The crowd is engaged. She is dynamic. The energy is off the charts with Kamala Harris. And if that's any indication, he says, if that's any indication, she's going to win. Okay. All right.
I mean, if that's any indication, she's going to win easily.
Oh, is that so?
Turn the page.
Yeah. And it does seem to be all falling down for them. This is not a sign to take complacency as we head. We have 8 days until the election. We have to keep our foot on the gas. I don't want you to be complacent, but it does seem like things are falling down around her. It really does. Jack Posobiec put this out over the weekend, and I believe it. I really do. He says that a White House official kind of gave him the scoop on what's happening behind the scenes, and that Biden is telling advisors that the election is dead and buried. He even called Kamala Harris an innate sucker. This is per a White House official. Jack Posobiec posted the text message conversation, and it says, this morning, Biden, conveyed to multiple advisors that the election was dead and buried, and called Kamala, an innate sucker, and too credulous from the starting line. He absolutely slammed her schedule versus 45s, said the race has been a classic hare and tortoise, but the hare is also stupid, not just lazy. Oh, yikes. His coherency when asked about her is second to no other subject. There's a special button in that head of his for her, and it's a moment to behold. To which Jack Posobiec replied, wow, wow, wow. And then the next text said, also been referring to Obama and virtually everyone who forced him out as suckers and jackasses.
That's a nasty one. That's nasty.
I believe it. How do you not? Listen, it's per a White House official, per an anonymous source. Take it with a grain of salt, but I believe it. I believe it. There's also reports out there that the Harris campaign are ignoring and avoiding requests from Biden to campaign for her, which it does kind of conflict with those reports of Biden calling her an innate sucker. But maybe this comes after the fact. President Joe Biden reportedly wanted to campaign for Harris in the final days leading up to the election, but Harris's campaign appears hesitant to accept, according to a report by Axios. The Harris team is said to be reluctant to outright reject Biden's offer, instead choosing to avoid direct communication about setting up campaign events. A source familiar with the situation compared it to a slow-moving breakup. Harris's team and allies respect Biden's service, but are weary of further tying Harris to the unpopular president on the campaign trail. The reluctance comes as Biden's approval rate hovers at 39%, according to 538's average, with widespread disapproval since his departure as the Democratic nominee. He's a reminder of the last 4 years, not the new way forward, another source told Axios, noting that Harris is aiming to position her campaign as a fresh direction for the country, despite serving as vice president under the current administration. Despite having the stench of failure on her, she's a new way forward. That's what they're saying. That's what they're saying. There's also reports out there that the Harris staff are not exactly happy with Gwen Waltz. They say Gwen Waltz is dragging down the ticket. Dustin Grage has this. Harris staff are extremely frustrated with both Doug Emhoff and Gwen Waltz for dragging down the ticket. I don't know. I feel like Gwen Waltz gives a certain kind of energy to the campaign.
Bye-bye, Donald Trump. We are turning the page. 52 days and we are turning the page.
Yeah, she looks like a lunatic. I can understand that. But it just seems like it's all bad news. All bad news. Meanwhile, Donald Trump just keeps winning. Are you tired of the winning? The Madison Square Garden rally was unreal, unbelievable, completely sold out, 75,000 hanging out outside. Insanity. The Joe Rogan podcast, we got to be at like 100 million views at this point with clips, the different platforms that you can watch it on, and the just the conversation around it, people repurposing those clips, it's got to be 100 million. Easily. It's been unbelievable. Unbelievable. And then you get the Joe Rogan, you get Madison Square Garden. It's just all good news.
I just looked up the podcast just out of curiosity on YouTube alone, not including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff that you can listen on to it as well. 33.6 million views already.
All right, you want to do something even more fun?
Yeah.
Kamala Harris skipped the Al Smith dinner.
Oh, yeah?
So that way she could go on the Call Her Daddy podcast, which was put out 2 weeks ago. Pull up the Call Her Daddy episode with Kamala Harris and tell me how many views that has after 2 weeks, which they say that's like one of the biggest podcasts for females out there, which I don't know. But I do know that it's not even getting close to the Trump Rogan views.
All right, we got a big number here.
This is 2 weeks after it's been released.
2 weeks after. 716,000 compared to the 33.6 million on the Joe Rogan podcast.
So it's so weird. Trump was doing so as the Joe Rogan podcast is released. Trump is doing a rally in Traverse City, Michigan, and the Kamala HQ Twitter account tried to pull a flex and they were like, look at how many people are watching the Kamala rally online, and look at how many people are watching the Trump rally online. Trump only has 14,000 viewers at his rally. It's like, yeah, well, everyone's watching the Joe Rogan podcast.
That, and we actually show up to our rallies.
Yeah, seriously. Did you see how Donald Trump showed up to that rally?
No, I didn't.
So, I listen, maybe this is just me, but it looked like he was saying it's over. Because he rolled up, as that podcast is being released, okay? He rolls up to this rally in Traverse City, Michigan, and he's got on a black MAGA hat with Make America Great Again in gold. He's got a black suit, a gold tie, and he walks out to the Undertaker's music. Right? Is that kind of saying like it's over? I feel like he's saying it's over. It's a good look. I would rock the black suit, gold tie, black and gold MAGA. Huge fan. Huge fan.
That's epic. That's so good.
Like, this is as the podcast has just been released. Like, it's over. It's over. So
Just appears behind Kamala.
right? So, I mean, Donald Trump, I think he understands where we are today. I think he knows that he does seem to be on the path to victory, but they're not stopping. J.D. Vance has been out all weekend long, just taking on every liberal reporter that he can find, from Jake Tapper to Kirsten Welker on Meet the Press, and J.D. Vance is handling it perfectly. And I think this is part of the strategy. You know, we've had multiple people text us, call in, and say, listen, I couldn't vote for Trump, but Vance won me over. You can look at the VP debate and say that was a huge turning point where people said, okay, I can't vote for Trump, but I can vote for J.D. Vance. So I think it's part of the strategy where Trump is doing the podcasts. Trump is going on, you know, and J.D. Vance is to a lesser extent, but Trump is on Theo Vaughn. Trump is on Full Send. Trump is on with Joe Rogan. So he's doing those podcasts, but J.D. Vance is handling the mainstream media. So that way, all the people out there that can't vote for Trump because he's a racist, because he says unhinged things, they can watch J.D. Vance do his thing. And the stuff he was doing over the weekend was world class. Taking on Jake Tapper when it comes to the Hitler accusations. Taking on Kristen Welker when it comes to Russia and the enemy from within hoax. World class. And I'll bring you that audio next. It's 9:22 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
Hey, the first lawsuit filed over Elon Musk's $1 million daily giveaway, it's just been filed. Also, a machete attack over the weekend, and an arrest has been made. Those stories at 9:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Joan Jones. 9:27 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So Kamala Harris melting down at rallies. Her supporters, with air quotes, Beyonce fans, not exactly happy. Donald Trump just keeps winning. And J.D. Vance, he was just hitting the circuit, making the mainstream media look like fools. And I'm here for it. I am. You know, one of the big things that we've had in the past week and change, Trump is Hitler. Everybody's saying it. Well, J.D. Vance took Jake Tapper to task on this issue. Yeah, you know, it's people that Trump fired. You know what's something Kamala hasn't done? Fire people that fail.
Okay, Jake, are you going to listen to every Trump administration official? You know, one reason why Kamala Harris doesn't have as many people criticizing her is because she doesn't fire people who fail. That's why we haven't had a real audit of the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal, is because Kamala Harris protects failures in government. Donald Trump fires them. And I'd much rather have the president who fires people who screw up. Now, Jake, no, this is an important point. Kamala Harris.
You did not fire Mike Pence.
Okay, Jake, are you...
I love J.D. Vance. Kamala doesn't fire anybody. He doesn't. She doesn't fire anybody. Joe Biden didn't fire anybody after Afghanistan. Nobody was fired. But J.D. continues, and he just demolishes these guys.
Ask yourself a basic question about network integrity. You guys talked about the Russia hoax nonstop.
The FBI was investigating it. The FBI was investigating it, and so we covered them.
And so you took the words of unnamed FBI agents and put them on your network as if they were the gospel truth. You did it again and again. A viewer of your network would have believed that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin conspired in 2016.
No.
That was totally and preposterously false.
No.
I love the way Jake Tapper says, no. It's like, Jake.
He sounds so defensive.
And it's like, does he know members of the Men in Black that just had the little wand thing to erase his memory? Like, this wasn't that long ago. No. And you nailed it. Defensive. And J.D. Vance kept him on defense.
Well, that's what you just said is false. We covered an FBI investigation. I don't know why you want to talk about the FBI investigation.
You covered it in a way that gave credence to anonymous sources' accusations. You did it yourself. Your network did it, Jake. But again, can we talk about the issues that Americans care most about?
I'm talking about things that Donald Trump has said.
Yes.
If you have an issue with whether or not he's talking about the economy enough, that's between you and your running mate. I'm talking about things he has said this week.
I love it. That's between you and your running mate. Like he's trying to cause some sort of rift between J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. It's like, dude, you're missing it. You're missing the entire point. J.D. Vance explained to him what he was missing and really just kept nailing Jake Tapper. And I'll play you the rest of that after the news with Joan Jones on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning. It's now 9:30, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. The Philadelphia District Attorney filing a lawsuit aimed at stopping Elon Musk from giving away $1 million every day in battleground states. It comes after the Justice Department issued a warning that the giveaway may violate federal laws. So far, Musk has ignored that warning. He's given away more than $9 million to voters who sign an online petition in support of the Constitution. DA Larry Krasner in Philadelphia claims that giveaway is intended to sway voters' ballot decisions. In Nashville, police continue searching for a man who was caught on camera brutally attacking another man, 59-year-old James Sutton, at the intersection of South 5th Street and Russell Street in East Nashville. Sutton died of his injuries. He was found still lying in the street. This nearby neighbor tells Channel 4 that the attack is a shock.
I walk around here a lot with my dog, and I've never had anything happen to me. I've never seen anything crazy like that. I feel like I'm generally pretty safe. I walk during the daylight hours. But yeah, I'm concerned for other people living nearby.
The police there are hoping the public can help them identify the attacker. A man who used a machete to threaten neighbors who were having a bonfire has been arrested. This happened Saturday night in Madison. Police say Angel Aguilar Domingo was apparently intoxicated when he sliced through some bushes with that machete and then broke a car window with it. He's in jail on $100,000 bail, facing 4 felony counts. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. Dow Jones Industrials up 336. The NASDAQ 135 points higher, and the S&P 500 index is up 33. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
Thank you, Joan. 9:32 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. 8 days until the election, and a lot of people don't know what to do. What do you do if Trump wins? What do you do if Harris wins? Well, I'll tell you what you can do today. Talk to an expert. If you're trying to figure out what to do when it comes to your investments and retirement planning, a lot of people worry about this, and a lot of people say very different things. Well, I talked to Paul and Paul Winkler's team at Paul Winkler Inc., and I can trust those guys. Now, I do get paid to do these commercials, but I don't get paid to be a client. And I'm a client of Paul's because he can break things down for me in a way that I can understand, and he can do the exact same thing for you. Think about it this way. Paul said this to me a couple times. If you worked for a car company, it only makes sense that you'd say their car is the best, because most people are getting advice on investing from banks, insurance agents, people who sell investment products. Paul and his team came from that side of the industry so they can break down and break through all of the noise and tell you what really goes on. All you have to do is give them a call to set up a complimentary consultation. The number is 615-851-1950. That's 615-851-1950, online at paulwinkler.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Matt Murphy in the middle of downtown Franklin, Tennessee. We've talked so much about Savory Spice. I thought, why not show you the place? So let's go on in and see what's popping at Savory Spice. As I've always said, you will smell the spices even before you walk in. I can smell them right here in the doorway. Come on in and let's introduce you to the one and only Holly, who is the owner and proprietor of Savory Spice. Say hey, Holly.
Hello, everyone.
Now, enough about Holly. Let's talk about spicy and easy products like the incredible taco soup, which, as I said, you put this in a crock pot, you put all the ingredients that it tells you to buy right there, you put the spices in, and it's so easy. So if you don't know what you're doing around the kitchen, it's a perfect way to find your way around the kitchen, as is the Mediterranean dill risotto. Now, for the holidays, pumpkin pie spice. What doesn't it have, Holly?
Pumpkin.
Doesn't have any pumpkin in it. That's a fun fact for all of you kids out there. Now, if you stop by Savory Spice, either in the Franklin location or at L&L Market, you can get yourself a sample of the dill dip, which is my absolute favorite. Just tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Savory Spice with purchase now. So come by Franklin or L&L Market in Nashville and come see Holly and the entire crew at Savory Spice.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
ask yourself a basic question about network integrity. You guys talked about the Russia hoax nonstop.
The FBI was investigating it. The FBI was investigating it, and we recovered them.
And so you took the words of unnamed FBI agents and put them on your network as if they were the gospel truth. You did it again and again. A viewer of your network would have believed that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin conspired in 2016.
No.
That was totally and preposterously false.
No.
Well, that's
what you just said is
why.
false. We covered an FBI investigation. I don't know why you want to talk about the FBI investigation.
You covered it in a way that gave credence to anonymous sources' accusations. You did it yourself. Your network did it, Jake. But again, can we talk about the issues that Americans care most about?
I'm talking about things that Donald Trump has said.
Yes.
If you have an issue with whether or not he's talking about the economy enough, that's between you and your running mate. I'm talking about things he has said this week.
Every single rally that he does, he talks about how he wants to unleash American energy so we can lower the cost of groceries. He talks about the fact that housing has become unaffordable. He talks about the wide open border, Jake. Kamala Harris and her allies, you know, it's interesting. Kamala Harris and her media allies, and I would put CNN in this category. You guys seem to care.
I'll tell you that. They wouldn't.
Well, they should watch your network more.
That's J.D. Vance on CNN with Jake Tapper. State of the Union over the weekend. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name's Chris Hand. Said I would put you in the camp of media ally of Kamala Harris. Jake Tapper says, well, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. I was like, well, they should watch your network more, Jake. Honestly. J.D. Vance looking better and better every time he gets in front of a camera as the choice for Donald Trump's running mate. And we've heard it time and time again from many people, anecdotally speaking, on the super text line, on the phone lines. I couldn't vote for Trump, but I sure as heck can vote for J.D. Vance. The VP debate was a turning point in the polling, which is wild because a lot of people say VP debates don't mean anything. Well, it seemed to have meant everything this last go-around because that is the shift. That's when Donald Trump started surging. Kamala Harris started flailing. And it's been to the races ever since.
Because you guys seem to care more about Donald Trump's past than the future of the American people. We're running this campaign on making the American dream.
I'm specifically asking about how Donald Trump is going to be president in the future should he win. And then we're being told
he's going to pursue economic policies that lower the cost of groceries and make life more affordable again. He talks about it every single day on the campaign trail, and so do I. What you're talking about is an anonymously sourced story, or one guy
anonymously sourced,
or who one guy who is a disgruntled employee.
I told
you
five other people
pushed back against him and said that what he said was dishonest. So why don't we talk about the policy that's affecting American citizens and not what Donald Trump allegedly said, according to one guy who's pissed off because he got fired by Donald Trump?
J.D. Vance just going full scorched earth, and I'm here for it. Why don't we talk about the policy instead of what one guy who's pissed off he got fired said? Well, because if we talk about policy, a network like CNN is going to they're not going to have much to say. A network like MSNBC, if we're just talking policy, isn't going to be able to hang in that conversation. See, all the mainstream media does is trash Donald Trump. And so when we have these anonymous sources or disgruntled employees, they latch onto it and they run 100 miles per hour because it's stop Trump by any means necessary. J.D. Vance out there on the campaign trail taking the interviews. J.D. Vance has taken every hard interview that's been thrown his way. Have you noticed that? He's been a fantastic choice for VP, and he proves it every time he goes out there. He didn't just stop at Jake Tapper and State of the Union on CNN over the weekend. He was also on Meet the Press with Kristen Welker, and the topic of Russia came up. And Kristen Welker wanted to make sure J.D. Vance said, Russia's evil and Vladimir Putin is our enemy. And he didn't take the bait. And I love him for this.
Do you see Russian President Vladimir Putin as an ally or an enemy?
Well, I think that he's clearly an adversary. He is a competitor. But I think that we also have to be smart about diplomacy, too. Just because we don't like somebody doesn't mean that we can't occasionally engage in conversations with them. And I think it's important, if we're ever going to end the war in Ukraine, fundamentally at some level, we're going to have to engage in some sort of negotiation between Ukraine, between Russia, between our NATO allies in Europe. And that's just a necessary part. Doesn't mean we have to like it, by the way. Doesn't mean we condone the Russian invasion of Ukraine. But I think that sometimes you do have to engage in diplomacy, even with and maybe especially with your adversaries. I think the bigger problem, Kristen, if we step back for a little bit, of course, we're on the cusp, obviously, of a presidential election where I want the American people to select my running mate as the next president. Whether it's the cost of groceries, whether it's the southern border, and importantly, whether it's the chaos all over the world, I think really the theme of this election is that Kamala Harris broke things in the world, in the country, and Donald Trump will fix it. And
JD, I mean, just world class. He's not taking the bait. He's not going to scream that Putin is an evil man, and he has reasons why. He's like, guys, we got to go to the negotiating table. And what good does it do calling Putin your enemy? What good is that? What good is going to come from that? What good? What good will come from that? But Kristen Welker wanted to keep pressing him. You're not willing to go so far as to call him an enemy? After J.D. Vance masterfully answers the question, he tries to redivert to actual policy issues. Kristen Welker brings him back and says, but you're not going to call him an enemy?
If we get back to his steady leadership, it's not just going to mean lower grocery prices at home. It's also going to mean a much more stable and peaceful world.
When you say that he's an adversary, just to get back to the question, you're not willing to go so far as to call him an enemy?
Well, we're not in a war with him, and I don't want to be in a war with Vladimir Putin's Russia. I think that we should try to pursue avenues of peace. I'd also call China certainly a competitor, but we're not in a war with China either. I do think, though, that China constitutes the biggest threat that we have for the United States of America, and I think that we have to be serious about it. But I think we have to be careful about the language that we use in international diplomacy. We can recognize, obviously, that we have adversarial interests with Russia. We can condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and I have, and of course the president has, but we also need to engage in some smart diplomacy if we're ever going to get out of the mess that Kamala Harris has left us in and get back to a posture of peace.
He's right. You can't just go out there and just slam Vladimir Putin if you want world peace. You just can't. And then, the enemy from within hoax happens on Meet the Press. And J.D. Vance, again, handles this with grace and just essentially dismantles it in about a minute flat.
So this week we learned that China was behind a broad hacking campaign targeting the phones of both presidential campaigns, highlighting the threat that China poses to this country. And yet Donald Trump recently called his domestic political opponents, quote, the enemy from within, and said they are more dangerous than Russia and China. Do you believe that people like Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi are more dangerous than Russia and China?
Yeah, I do.
Well, I think what Donald Trump said is that those folks pose a greater threat to United States' peace and security because America is strong enough to stand up to any foreign adversary.
Do you agree with him? They pose a larger threat to the United States than Russia and China?
What he said, and I do agree with this, what he said is that the biggest threat we have in our country, it's not a foreign adversary because we can handle these guys. We can handle foreign conflicts. We can handle, look, under Nancy Pelosi's long life in public leadership, the United States has gone from the preeminent industrial power of the world to second next to China. That fundamentally belongs on Nancy Pelosi's shoulders. And if we're going to have a more prosperous country, we've got to recognize our own leadership is why we lost our industrial base to China. Our own leadership is failing to lead this country into peace and prosperity. And of course, Kamala Harris, look, when I look at the biggest threats to America, Kristen, I think the fact that people can't afford groceries, the fact that we can't meet our recruitment goals in the military, the fact that Americans have a wide open southern border, that's a way bigger threat than any foreign threat. And yes, it's caused by broken leadership.
He nails it. He doesn't come off unhinged. He doesn't act like a lunatic. He doesn't get angry. He calmly answers the question in a way that Kristen Welker and Meet the Press can't refute. This is why J.D. Vance is so good to be out there on the mainstream media trail. He's so good because a lot of people watch J.D. Vance and go, okay, I like that guy. I can vote for him. I can't vote for Trump, but I can vote for him. Picking a running mate is important, and you can see the failure in picking a poor running mate via Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. I mean, heck, you can see the failure in picking a poor running mate for Joe Biden. Remember, everybody hated Kamala Harris for the longest time, Democrats included, until everybody was told, no, she's up next, and she's the greatest thing since sliced bread. This video has been going around. A guy by the name of Maze on Twitter put it together. But it's just a highlight reel to remind everyone how much Kamala Harris was hated by the mainstream media, by the left, until they were told otherwise.
There are reports that say that you have the lowest approval rating of any vice president.
Well, there are polls that also say I have great approval ratings.
Swing voters don't like Harris. How big a drag is Kamala Harris on the ticket?
She's a pretty big drag. I think she was arguably Biden's worst political decision.
They don't like her. There's lots of reasons they don't like her.
Kamala Harris's approval rating is now at 28%, which is an historic low for any modern vice president.
We're hearing it from mainstream media, one outlet after another, one leak after another. That Kamala Harris is the worst vice president ever, the worst politician ever.
We don't see the vice president. What people are saying to me, and I'm sure they're saying it to you, where's the vice president? Some White House officials are feeling that she came off looking unprepared for inevitable questions about when she might visit the southern border.
We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making.
The point that Lester Holt was making was obvious to anyone else who was watching this interview, which is that the issues at the border are inextricably linked with the portfolio that she's been given.
The border is secure. We have a secure border.
Bidenomics is working. Prices have gone up. And families and individuals are dealing with the realities of that bread costs more, that gas costs more. And we have to understand what that means. That's about the cost of living going up.
He picked Kamala Harris to be his running mate. She was ranked and is ranked as the most liberal senator in the United States Senate. So he could have gone the other way, but he went to the left.
Joe Biden is running for re-election, and I will be his ticket mate. Full stop. Full stop. That's it.
I love that highlight reel. Again, the guy by the name of Maze Moore put it together. If you want to watch the visuals, I retweeted it on my account, at Chris Hand on Air. Picking a running mate is important, and J.D. Vance has been knocking it out of the park all weekend long, while the Kamala campaign just seems to be imploding. If you believe the White House official that texted Jack Posobiec over the weekend, it doesn't look good. Joe Biden allegedly saying that the campaign is dead and buried. Yikes. Meanwhile, Trump's campaign, it just seems like we're skyrocketing. Like we're just 1,000 miles per hour going straight to the moon. Between the Joe Rogan podcast and the Madison Square Garden interview, at the Joe Rogan podcast, the Madison Square Garden rally, excuse me, he just can't stop winning. He can't stop winning. I'll let the super texters decide where we want to go next. Do you want to go Joe Rogan podcast, or do you want to go Madison Square Garden rally? Text me, 615-737-9986, and I'll pick, based on your votes, which topic to go for first. All right? Whatever you guys want. Joe Rogan or Madison Square Garden, 615-737-9986. It's 9:51 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand, and if you've got some cracks in your foundation, don't walk by them and pretend you don't see them. You're going to need to deal with that problem. But deal with that problem with somebody you can trust. Call who homeowners trust. Call United Structural Systems. Again, when it comes to these large home repairs, you know it. I know it. We pretend we don't see the warning signs. We don't want to get sold something we don't need. We don't want to be fed a bill of goods. We just want honesty. And you can get that with USS. They'll come to your home, and they'll let you know if it needs to be fixed right away, or if it's just something small, or if it's nothing. They'll tell you the honest truth. This is why they've been in business since 1994 in Middle Tennessee. This is how they got 25,000 satisfied residential customers. They'll come to your home, not with a sales quota in mind, but with a goal of fixing your problems. You want someone there who's going to be able to educate you and help you understand what's happening with your home. The guys at USS can do that, whether it's foundation repair or waterproofing work that you need done. Call who homeowners trust. Call USS. They're keeping homes dry and stable. 615-488-7855. 615-488-7855. They guarantee their best. Call USS. Online at USSTN.com.
Hey everybody, Dan Mandis with Super Talk 99.7 WTN and Nashville's Morning News. Right now, we are bringing results for our clients using both our radio and digital assets. 2025 is going to be a huge year, not only here in Tennessee, but of course, across America. If you want to jump on board, again, we're offering great incentives. Find us online, 997WTN.com, and let's talk.
A washed-out road in Unicoi County is about to reopen, and why a college student had to be rescued at a local cave. Those stories coming up at 10 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Joan Jones. It's 9:59 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So myself and Mason were tallying your votes on the Super Text line. What do you want to hear from first? The Rogan podcast or the Madison Square Garden rally? And everybody said, give me that Nazi rally. That's what they wanted.
I was like, it was a pretty undeniable.
Yeah. I mean, it as far as Nazi rallies go, it was the most inclusive Nazi rally I'd ever seen. It was. I mean, there were Arab Americans, Black Americans, Asian Americans, Muslim Americans, Jewish Americans. Very inclusive, big tent Nazi policies.
Donald Trump has descended into madness over the last few weeks. And I think some of you don't miss on this. Go do your Google on this. Donald Trump's got this big rally going at Madison Square Garden. There's a direct parallel to a big rally that happened in the mid-1930s at Madison Square Garden. And don't think that he doesn't know for 1 second exactly what they're doing there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a Nazi rally. I wish that somebody would have told this Chinese immigrant outside the rally that she was supporting Nazis, because in the lead up to getting into the rally, this woman on RSBN was just absolutely on fire.
Chinese first generation, we love Trump from our bottom of the heart, because we know Trump is the only one can save America. Kamala is so stupid. She is so low. IQ equal no Q. No.
I love that. She's so low IQ equals no Q. No Q.
No Q, no qualification to be the president. You shall stay away from that position. You already lost the position. You lost our trust. You lost our vote. You just need to go home, to stay home. You cannot do anything to save America. You are so stupid. You don't know anything. You cannot even answer any question from the camera, from all the media. How you can be on the stage to fight for America, to protect American people.
It was pretty cool, the scenes outside the rally. Even more cool what happened inside the rally. I'll bring you the highlights from some of the best. Everybody was there. RFK, Tucker, Rudy Giuliani. I mean, it was unreal. Highlights next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning. It's now 10 o'clock, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. 58 degrees at the moment. We'll get up to 81 later. Got the forecast for you coming up. A pedestrian was hit by a car early this morning in Hermitage. It happened at the intersection of Old Hickory and Frist Boulevard. Metro Nashville police saying that the person hit has non-life-threatening injuries. That person was taken to the hospital. Interstate 26 in Unicoi County expected to reopen within the next 2 weeks. That's according to the Tennessee Department of Transportation. Crews are working toward restoring one lane of traffic in each direction after Helene hit that region last month. In the meantime, TDOT says it will continue to repave other portions of the I-26 that were damaged by floodwaters. Crews in Rutherford County have rescued someone who fell 80 feet into a sinkhole at a local cave. This happened at the Snail Shell Cave in Rockville. Rescuers say that the person was part of a Middle Tennessee State University student group, and they fell through a large sinkhole near the mouth of the cave. Rutherford County Fire and Rescue and Rutherford County Emergency Medical Services rescued that student using a high-angle rope rescue operation. The student was flown to Vanderbilt University Medical Center. A terror attack in Israel. Someone ran a truck into civilians waiting at a bus stop.
Israeli police investigating a potential terror attack after a truck plowed into a crowded bus stop near Tel Aviv, killing a 72-year-old man and injuring more than 30 others. The driver, who police say was an Israeli Arab citizen, shot dead by armed civilians at the scene. The incident coming a day after Israel launched its largest ever direct attack on Iran, following a massive Iranian missile barrage earlier this month.
That's ABC foreign correspondent Britt Clennett reporting from Tel Aviv. Market numbers report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management online at beaconcm.com. We've got Dow Jones Industrials up 305, NASDAQ gaining 82, and the S&P is up 25 points. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
.10:07 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Donald Trump, the audacity to have an event at Madison Square Garden. You fascist.
You Nazi.
You stupid idiot. You understand, right? In 1939, what was going on there?
You bigot.
I'd expect this out of the Knicks and the Rangers, but not you. Well, over 94,000 people didn't seem to care about the implications of what happened in the 30s.
Had a caller call in earlier and was like, Hillary was calling him out for having a rally there, being a Nazi. Didn't she have one there in like the 90s?
Yep.
I think it's in the same boat.
Sure did,
I'm just saying.
Over 94,000 people went to the rally.
Let's go.
Inside, I mean, the max space was 19,500. NYPD reported 75,000 outside.
Holy cow. Whoa.
You know what my big takeaway was? No twerking rappers. Nobody got bussed in. I don't know. It was wall-to-wall coverage. I mean, this was covered on Fox News, CNN, Newsmax, C-SPAN, MSNBC, News Nation. It was everywhere. OAN. This rally was everywhere.
Yeah, like they were talking about the streaming like numbers. Like I said, they all showed up, I guess, because if that's 75,000 outside the building is nuts.
MSNBC described it as in the ticker on the bottom of the page.
Yeah.
Said, Trump's Madison Square Garden rally comes 85 years after pro-Nazi rally at King Arena.
Directly tied.
So, yeah. What a bunch of clowns. Don't worry though. What day is the election next week?
I think it's on Tuesday.
Okay, perfect. Anytime anyone says Trump is a Nazi, just tell them, see you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday. MSNBC on the Trump rally. This is how they sounded describing it on the air.
But that jamboree happening right now, you see it there on your screen, in that place is particularly chilling because in 1939, more than 20,000 supporters of a different fascist leader, Adolf Hitler, packed the garden for a so-called pro-America rally. A rally where speakers voiced anti-Semitic rhetoric from a stage draped with Nazi banners. When a Jewish protester rushed the stage, the Associated Press reported, quote, instantly, a dozen or more stormtroopers set upon him, knocking him down and beating him as he held his head in his arms. Most of his clothing was torn from his body.
Yeah, don't worry, though. All of the Jewish attendees at the Madison Square Garden rally, they were actually pro-Trump. It was the most inclusive Nazi rally I'd ever seen. The most inclusive. Elon Musk was there. Tucker Carlson was there. RFK Jr. was there. It did seem like we had an all-star cast.
We're going to get the government off your back and out of your pocketbook. And America's just not just going to be great. America is going to reach heights that it has never seen before. The future is going to be amazing.
Whoa. What a radical thing for a Nazi to say, that America is going to be great. How dare he? How dare he? One of the best speakers of the night is Tucker Carlson. You understand I'm a big Tucker fan. But he had a message for the leadership class, the elites of our country, if you will. You know, that's what they call themselves. I don't really view them as elite. But Tucker just took them to town.
He's liberated us in the deepest and truest sense. And the liberation he has brought to us is the liberation from the obligation to tell lies. Donald Trump has made it possible for the rest of us to tell the truth about the world around us. And that's the single most liberating thing you can do for people. If you want to enslave people, if you want to degrade them, force them to tell lies. And they have. They forced us to lie about everything at gunpoint, effectively. They put people in prison for refusing to lie. And not just the obvious lies that men can become women or Vladimir Putin blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. No, honestly, he did. January 6th was an insurrection. They were unarmed, but it was very insurrection-y. Not even the obvious ones, but the big lie. You know what the big lie is? The big lie is that they're impressive. That's what the big lie is. That the people in charge have somehow earned the right to rule over you, and they haven't. And you know that. These are the single most useless people in the United States. They have no skills whatsoever. They've got 3/4 of the money, and they didn't earn it. They set up a system precisely for the purpose of awarding themselves wealth and power when it's undeserved. You look at Liz Cheney and you ask yourself honestly, what skill could she possibly have that allowed her to send hundreds of thousands of people to their deaths? Did she earn that? I don't think she did. No fair system would make Liz Cheney powerful. No fair system would make Larry Fink rich. No fair system would elevate someone like Kamala Harris to a presidential nomination. She's never been accused of doing anything useful. She has precisely no achievements. She's a nominee without getting a single vote. She is a metaphor for the system they created to make themselves rich and powerful, and then they have the gall to lecture you, the people who can actually change a flat tire and repair a power grid, who have useful jobs, who pay your taxes and work 40 hours a week, lecture you that you are somehow immoral. And Donald Trump has empowered the rest of us through mostly just sticking around in the face of their hate and abuse and persecution. He has given the rest of us the right to call BS on the charade. No, you are not better than us.
I love it. Tucker Carlson just going scorched earth. And I think it's important to point out Dean Phillips got more votes in the primary than Kamala Harris. Old Dean Phillips. Byron Donalds, he was there as well, and he said, listen, I don't really even want to talk about Kamala Harris. She doesn't want to talk about herself.
I don't even want to talk about Kamala. Why? Why would we waste our time? She doesn't even want to talk about herself.
I mean, he's right. The energy and the vibes were next level. Next level. And then when the man of the hour got out there, the crowd was ready. The crowd was big hype, if you will. And Trump didn't hold back. He didn't hold back at all.
Kamala's gross incompetence disqualifies her from being president of the United States of America. She is grossly incompetent. All you have to do is look at her interviews, look at what she did the other night on fake news, CNN. Just take a look. She couldn't answer a question. She's unfit for office. Everyone knows it. No one respects her. No one trusts her. No one takes her seriously. Everyone knows she is a very low IQ individual. From humiliating our country in Afghanistan to the war in Ukraine, to the nightmare on our border, to her inflation catastrophe, all done in conjunction with Sleepy Joe. But he was largely sleeping, wasn't he? After 4 o'clock. It's time to go to bed.
Listen, where's the lie? Where's the lie? Trump continued on Kamala Harris, calling her an absolute train wreck. Again, where's the lie?
Kamala Harris is a train wreck who has destroyed everything in her path. To make her president would be a gamble with the lives of millions and millions of people. She would get us into World War III. We're very close to World War III.
Yeah, she would. She would. World leaders aren't going to respect this woman. They wouldn't. They wouldn't fear this woman. They don't. She's in power now. Has she struck any fear into the hearts of Putin or Xi Jinping or Kim Jong-un? No. No, but at the end of the day, it's not exactly just about Kamala Harris. You can see the way that she was installed. You understand that there are people pulling strings behind the scenes. You get that. There's a lot of Americans that don't, and Donald Trump tries to lay it out in a way that everybody can understand.
Kamala broke it, but I will fix it. We're going to fix it. But we're just not running against Kamala. I think a lot of our politicians here tonight know this. She means nothing. She's purely a vessel. That's all she is. When you see her up there talking about the grass on my front lawn, I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood and I had grass on my front lawn. Yeah, but we're asking, what would you do to fix the country? And why didn't you do it? You had almost 4 years. Why didn't you do this stuff? Now she's becoming more MAGA than those politicians I just told you about from the different states. She can't put two sentences together. She's just like, she's really just like, in many ways, crooked Joe Biden. And she never said to us, she never told us that Joe was not functioning properly. She should have. Because, we're talking about the life of the most important country in the world.
Trump's right. I mean, even today, Joe can't run. He'd probably be a better candidate, but he's allowed to be the president. The same guy who couldn't stand trial for the classified documents because it'd be too sympathetic and he's an old man with memory issues. That guy still gets to be president.
We need very smart people. We're running against something far bigger than Joe or Kamala and far more powerful than them, which is a massive, vicious, crooked, radical left machine that runs today's Democrat Party. They're just vessels. In fact, they're perfect vessels because they'll never give them a hard time. They'll do whatever they want. I know many of them. It's just this amorphous group of people. But they're smart and they're vicious. And we have to defeat them. And when I say the enemy from within, the other side goes crazy. becomes a sound. Oh, how can he say? No, they've done very bad things to this country. They are indeed the enemy from within. But this is who we're fighting. These are the people who are doing such harm to our country with their open border policies, record-setting inflation, Green New scam, and everything else that they're doing. But we're not going to let it happen any longer. We're going to have the biggest victory in the history of our country on November 5th. It's going to be the biggest victory in history.
And it's hard not to feel that. Like we're feeling that momentum. We're feeling that energy. It does feel like we're going to have a massive victory. Don't take your foot off the gas. Don't slow down. We have to keep going. We have to. It wasn't all, just Trump doing his thing, right? He was pretty funny at times. He talked about Kamala Harris and her dependence on the teleprompter.
3 weeks ago, she was saying there was only 32 days left, right? And she's reading it like, there's 32 days, and it stopped. And she went, there's 32 days. 32. And I was watching.
Today we got 32 days until the election. So 32 days. 32 days. Okay, we got some business to do. All right. 32 days. And we know we will do it.
He said, this isn't pretty. 32. She was gone. And then, damn it, it kicked back on. She was gone. So you're up there all alone. We don't go 32. Oh, my God, whatever. Kamala Harris is a train wreck who has destroyed everything in her path.
Yep, and she can't say a thing without the teleprompter. Hey, on the way, 10:35, Savannah Hernandez is going to be joining the show. Sav's going to tell us her take on the current state of the election. Plus, she's been working on a story in Logansport, Indiana. We mentioned that last week. A lot of kids being forced out of school to make room for Haitian migrants. Savannah Hernandez was on the ground there, and she's going to kind of give us a breakdown on what's happening. As the presidential election keeps going, there are still massive stories and ramifications from these open border policies that we're seeing in real time via Kamala Harris. So Sav's going to join the show. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Plus, on the way, I do have some more highlights from the Madison Square Garden rally and the Joe Rogan podcast. It's 10:22 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
The coroner has identified 2 people killed in a small plane crash and another effort at a ceasefire in the Middle East. Those stories coming up at 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Joan Jones. 10:26 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name's Chris Hand. I like this clip of the Asian woman outside the Trump rally. But Oscar on the text line, not a huge fan. I told Oscar to call in. He sent me a text. He said, "You found your token Asian woman sound clip. It's so sad to see people like this try to fit in with people who don't want them here in this country. Y'all only want their vote and not them." In case you missed it, there's this clip going viral of a first-generation Chinese immigrant who came through the front door, as she says it, not the back door, and she's a Trump fan because she's seen communism firsthand and understands how bad it is. Oscar on the text line says, "We only want her vote." Actually, I want her to be prosperous and live the American dream like everyone else. I can understand you're salty, Oscar, because this goes against your narrative that it's a Nazi rally. In case you missed that clip, this is a lot of the internet's new favorite person.
The Chinese first generation, we love Trump from our bottom of the heart because we know Trump is the only one can save America. Kamala is so stupid. She is so low. IQ equal no Q, no qualification to be the president. You shall stay away from that position. You already lost the position. You lost our trust. You lost our vote. You just need to go home.
So I'd say, Oscar, refute what she said. You lost our trust. You've abused your position. You lost our vote. No qualifications. What did she say that was wrong?
You stay home. You cannot do anything to save America. You are so stupid. You don't know anything. You cannot even answer any question from the camera, from all the media. How you can be on the stage to fight for America, to protect American people, to protect all the world. You are not qualified. You just need to go home. Let Trump to save America, to save the world, to put America first. If America to be strong, to be saved, and then America can save the whole world. Trump, we love you. We love you forever. Never ever surrender. Fight, fight, fight. Fight for Trump. Fight, fight, fight.
Fight, fight, fight. Oscar, I invited you to call in. I've yet to receive a text back. I'd love to get your in-depth analysis on what she said that was wrong. But this is what leftists do. They'll throw a little grenade, and then they'll scurry. He can't argue with anything this woman who has seen communism firsthand said. And it goes against the narrative from the left that this was a Nazi rally. It's a Nazi rally. The Chinese immigrant also didn't need a teleprompter to make her message clear. But Oscar, 615-737-9986, man. Call in to tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm wrong. He said, you found your token Asian woman sound clip. He said, it's so sad to see people like this try to fit in with people who don't want them here in this country. Oscar, I would say it's so sad to watch Americans like you rally for someone who doesn't care about you at all. Kamala Harris doesn't care about the cost of your bills, Oscar. Kamala Harris doesn't care about your neighborhood, Oscar. Kamala Harris doesn't care if she sends your kids and your grandkids into World War III, Oscar. It's so sad to see someone like you rally behind someone who clearly doesn't care about you. It's 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
10:30 now, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. 2 people who were killed in a small plane crash in Kentucky over the weekend have been identified now. They are husband and wife, Michael and Connie Murphy. They're both 72 years old from Lexington, Kentucky. The NTSB is arriving on the scene this morning. That plane, described as a single-powered parachute aircraft, went down in a field near Lexington just before 6 o'clock last night. A new effort to prevent violent crime in the Nashville area. Acting U.S. Attorney for Middle Tennessee, Thomas Jaworski, says the program, called Operation Bond Watch, aims at stopping defendants who are out on bond for serious violent crimes from illegally possessing firearms before their day in court.
I feel like I wake up almost every morning and turn on the news and see that someone was shot last night. And if we don't step in and do something, no one's going to. And so that's my hope, is that there's less violence, that Nashville becomes and continues to be the hospitable place for tourism, for people to move here, for businesses to relocate here.
Now, someone out on bond for a serious violent crime is found with a firearm. Prosecutors can seek immediate federal charges against that person. The U.S. is leading a new round of ceasefire talks in Qatar today.
A new round of U.S.-led Gaza ceasefire talks underway in Doha with the Israelis, Egyptians, and Qataris. CIA Chief Bill Burns weighing some new options, from a shorter initial ceasefire to a sweeping all-for-all deal. That is, declaring an immediate end of the war, releasing all 97 Israeli hostages, and a swift Israeli army redeployment. Egypt's proposal for a 2-day ceasefire grabbing headlines, but Hamas indicating it will reject any partial deal and stick to its hardline position. Jordana Miller, ABC News, Jerusalem.
That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Matt Murphy in the middle of downtown Franklin, Tennessee. We've talked so much about Savory Spice. I thought, why not show you the place? So let's go on in and see what's popping at Savory Spice. As I've always said, you will smell the spices even before you walk in. I can smell them right here in the doorway. Come on in, and let's introduce you to the one and only Holly, who is the owner and proprietor of Savory Spice. Say hey, Holly.
Hello, everyone.
Now, enough about Holly. Let's talk about spicy and easy products like the incredible taco soup, which, as I said, you put this in a crock pot, you put all the ingredients that it tells you to buy right there, you put the spices in, and it's so easy. So if you don't know what you're doing around the kitchen, it's a perfect way to find your way around the kitchen, as is the Mediterranean dill risotto. Now, for the holidays, pumpkin pie spice. What doesn't it have, Holly?
Pumpkin.
Doesn't have any pumpkin in it. That's a fun fact for all of you kids out there. Now, if you stop by Savory Spice, either in the Franklin location or at L&L Market, you can get yourself a sample of the dill dip, which is my absolute favorite. Just tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Savory Spice with purchase now. So come by Franklin or L&L Market in Nashville and come see Holly and the entire crew at Savory Spice.
10:35 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. You know, in the midst of this presidential race, especially as we're getting down to the wire, it's hard to see the other news stories happening. And there are a lot of other news stories happening. In fact, the ramifications of the wide open southern border and the Biden-Harris immigration policies, I mean, it's right in front of your face if you look for it. Our next guest, Savannah Hernandez, she's always crisscrossing the country, covering these stories that the mainstream media doesn't want to touch. And your latest trip, Sav, took you to Logansport, Indiana.
Yes, Chris. Another small town that I had never heard of before, a couple of weeks ago, that has also already been overrun by migrants under the Biden-Harris administration. And, Chris, too, before I go into this story, I will make the differentiation between illegal immigrant and migrant, because technically the Haitians that are in this area, right, this is a small town of around 18,000 people. They've seen a 30% population surge due to the Haitians that have made their way to their area. And they have been brought into the United States of America on the Biden-Harris CHNV program. So technically, because Biden and Harris flew them into the United States of America, let's not forget that under this program, they're flying in 30,000 migrants every single month, and they've been doing this for years. Technically, because of this loophole, because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden gave them this quote-unquote permission, they are migrants in this area. So just wanted to have that caveat here so people understand, again, why I'm saying migrant as opposed to illegal immigrants here. And also, too, the programs that the Biden-Harris administration have been putting in place to make our law even more convoluted and give migrants who shouldn't be here more loopholes.
And that's what I was going to say. I think it's important to point out that the majority of these Haitian migrants would have been inadmissible under any other circumstance to come into the country.
Exactly. And it's absolutely crazy too, Chris, because I've really been focused in on the CHNV program, because it is due to this program that a lot of migrants have made their ways to various places such as Charleroi, Pennsylvania, Springfield, Ohio, Logansport, Indiana. I was in Brunswick, Maine at the beginning of this month, where you have migrants from the Congo and Angola and all of these various other places. And it's like, how are these people getting here? And it's not just the wide open southern border, but it's just, again, all of these various ways that the Biden-Harris administration have completely decimated the United States of America in terms of any law and order when it comes to migration, whether legal or illegal.
Yeah, and it really helps them, because then they can say border crossings are down because we're actually flying them in.
Yeah, exactly. Or they divert to Congress and say, oh, well, we actually are trying to close the border down, but Congress won't let us, even though, the bill that we proposed was still going to allow 1 million migrants to come into the United States of America every single year illegally.
Yeah.
But anyways, Chris, got that out of the way. Logansport, Indiana, absolutely insane what is going on over here. You have thousands of Haitian migrants that are in this very tiny town. And I'm speaking to residents, and it's just so heartbreaking, because not only was I speaking to, again, this is just like the backbone of America, right? These are just Americans who are trying to make a living, trying to be able to afford a home, saying rent prices have gone up. We haven't even been able to buy a home, let alone afford a home. And now you have all of these migrants coming in who have this assistance from the government, are being put on food stamps, and are living better than us. And the reason they're being attracted to Indiana is because of the Tyson food plant over there. And this is where it gets interesting. Now, the reason why Tyson is hiring these migrants is because they're getting a federal tax credit if the migrants are on food stamps, which, again, once the Biden-Harris administration, again, whether illegally or quote-unquote legally, bring migrants into the U.S., they basically get food stamps. They get all of the benefits that the average American would love to have. And then Tyson gets to hire these people on, gets a tax credit, and then American citizens are being deprived of jobs at these various plants. Let's not forget that earlier. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say it's going to be eye-opening for a lot of people around here, because we have a couple Tyson plants near us in the listening area.
Yeah, exactly, Chris. And Tyson actually has shut down other plants and put Americans out of jobs earlier this year. And they also were quoted saying, yes, we would like to hire thousands of migrants if we can. And they are partnered specifically with this program that essentially partners with these various corporations and makes sure that they hire migrants specifically. And then you have all of these various again, tax credits or this and that given from the federal government so that these migrants are given precedent to be hired. So it's just insane what's going on. And it's like, okay, Logansport, Indiana, why does it matter? Why does it care? Why do we care? Because this small subset of America is, again, what every single city is beginning to look like. I live in Texas, in San Antonio. Just the other week, I was reading about how Tren de Aragua took over apartment complexes over here in Texas. So whether you're in a major American city or a small rural town where you would never expect to see the migrant crisis, every single person is being affected by this.
So what are they able to do in Logansport, Indiana? What can a citizen in these small towns do to push back against this? Because it seems like the deck is stacked against them.
It honestly feels that way, Chris, and it's heartbreaking to me because when I go to these small areas, and this is probably the second or third time where I've heard this from local residents, like, hey, our media here, our local newspaper is very liberal, so they refuse to report on these problems. Our state is absolutely ignoring us, and we can't get national attention. And that's why I really tried to focus in on a lot of these smaller towns and cities that you may have never heard of, because their local media refuses to cover it. Their state or, local government is kind of ignoring the issue. And of course, the federal government is aiding and abetting these problems. So it's really heartbreaking to see what has happened across the entire nation. And I mean, I'm doing what I can to try to, bring awareness to it. But it's like, what really can the American people do? It really does feel like we are victim to a federal government who hates our sovereignty.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure at a certain point when you're walking around these small towns, whether it's when you were in Maine or when you were covering the apartments that they're getting or in Logansport, Indiana, I'm sure a lot of the residents are like, wow, are reporters asking questions about this?
Oh, absolutely. And they're so excited to talk, Chris. Now, my reporting style is I'm basically walking along the street and I just stop random people and I'm like, hey, can I talk to you about this issue? What have you been experiencing? And everybody in Logansport was very open to speak with me, and they all had, stories about the migrants, about feeling unsafe, about how their city, I guess their town really, was never like this, but now they're feeling unsafe. So many women specifically told me that they are afraid to go to their local Walmart because they are being harassed. They are being surrounded by Haitians. There's cultural assimilation problems. Things are happening in their town that were never happening previously, and it is directly tied to the migrants. This is another thing that I'm sure many Americans have experienced, but there's a huge uptick in car crashes right now directly related to the migrants. One of the first things I saw when I was driving into Logansport was Haitians putting a couch on top of their van and just driving off. They didn't even, tie it down or anything. It was crazy.
Wait, the couch wasn't even tied down?
No, they just popped it up on the van and they drove off. And, same thing when I drove into Maine. And it's just crazy, Chris, because I'm like, this is like too crazy to be true. But when I drove into Maine earlier this month, the first thing I saw was a Haitian car crash, or I guess they're Africans up there. It's just been a mess, Chris. It's been an absolute mess across the entire country.
And in Maine, you were touring these apartments that the government is paying for.
Yes. So we were able to get an inside look, and the city of Brunswick originally built these apartments for Maine residents because they have a housing crisis up that way, and then they decided to put illegal immigrants in these apartments instead. Now, these migrants, they're from Haiti, they're from Africa, they're getting these apartments rent-free for up to 2 years. They come furnished. They're luxury apartments. And by the way, if an American citizen did want to rent out one of these units, it's going to run them around $1,800 for a one-bedroom or $2,300 for a two-bedroom. Meanwhile, illegal immigrants are getting these units for free, and Maine residents are extremely upset because they are dealing with surging rent. They are dealing with a housing crisis. The average price of a home up there is $480,000.
Jeez.
Migrants come over here illegally. They get rent for free for 2 years.
So with all of this going on and all your reporting, I mean, luckily we do have a free speech platform in Twitter, X. Are you finding it difficult right now to get this reporting out to the front?
You know, with the Logansport, Indiana story, I kind of was, and I think it's because everybody is so focused in on the election. But, you know, I always continue to point people back to the illegal immigration crisis because this is going to fundamentally change our country, not only for this election, but for future elections because of the way that illegal immigrants are changing the census of our population, right? That could potentially go into the districting of certain counties later on. We're already seeing the push for illegal immigrants to be, given the right to vote. We are already seeing the fact that you have certain non-citizens on voter rolls. This just happened in Virginia. It's happening in various states. And, you know, there's also so many instances of reporters going undercover and talking to migrants and asking them, illegal immigrants specifically, like, hey, are you registered to vote? And them responding, yes. So there's NGOs across the country that have been focused in on the illegal immigrant group specifically on trying to get them involved in our elections. And so, this is such an important and pivotal issue because it really is going to change the fundamental structure of not only our population, but potentially our entire country.
It's insane. 8 days out from the election, what are you feeling on the ground? I mean, I think it's actually great that you travel around as much as you do, hitting different communities like Maine, like Indiana. What are you feeling on the ground as you're traveling around?
I feel like the average American is tired. They have experienced Biden and Harris for the past 4 years, and they want change. They listen to Kamala Harris, who, essentially puts forward this message of hope, but people keep asking, okay, well, what's the plan to get us to this new hopeful future? We've seen nothing good come from this administration, and people are exhausted, not only with the housing crisis, the illegal immigration, the economy, but simply feeling like they don't have a leader that cares about them. Now, if you look at Aurora, Colorado, for example, where Tren de Aragua took over those apartment complexes, Donald Trump already made a trip over there and went and spoke to the residents and the police in that small town, and they very much appreciated that. So, I think Americans are very hungry for leadership, and everywhere I've gone, Chris, the energy for Trump has been incredible, and people are no longer even afraid to support Donald Trump, right? 4 years ago, people were afraid to wear the MAGA hat because they were scared they were going to get punched in the face. Just yesterday, you had a sea of MAGA hats as far as the eye could see in New York City, of all places.
Yeah, that rally was unbelievable. What do you expect in these next 8 days as we head towards the election? Do you expect that October surprise, or are you hearing anything? What's your kind of gauge on the situation?
I feel like there are not going to be any more surprises. I think that what we see is what we get right now, and it really is up to the American voter to go to their local polling place, go vote. Again, if you are on the fence and you're like, maybe I'm going to vote for Kamala because I think Trump is really bad, just please, God, look at your wallet, look at what the past 4 years have felt like, and truly, just from an economic perspective, I mean, Chris, it's like everybody knows that it's been harder to afford food and gas. So truly, I hope that the American people continue to go to the polls and they really think about the economic impact and the personal impact that the past 4 years has had on them, and they vote accordingly. So, I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful. Scott Presler did a great job in Pennsylvania as well. I think there's record voter registration up in Pennsylvania for Republicans. So a lot of really great energy as we are in really this final home stretch, Chris.
I can't believe it. I mean, we got a couple days. I chuckled for a second because you said if you're on the fence, just please, God. And then I feel like you could have stopped there.
Yeah.
Savannah Hernandez.
Seriously.
She's a fantastic investigative reporter. What leads are you working on? Where are you going next?
Well, Chris, I think for this last week, I'm really just going to be doing my own research and focus in on political analysis. But in the future, I am going to continue to focus on these small American cities and towns because, unfortunately, even if Donald Trump gets into office, it is going to be a process to clean up the country. And many of these small cities and towns are still going to be impacted by illegal immigration. So that is still going to be the focus. Are
you switching into possible protest mode if Trump wins, thinking about where protests and riots might be popping up?
Chris, I told myself after the election I get to rest, and then I was like, wait, I'm an idiot. Trump's getting in, and then there's going to be insane protests until Inauguration Day, and then it's going to be even crazier. So just kidding, no rest for me. Absolutely, I am in that mindset.
I love it. Savannah Hernandez, where can we find you and keep up with you?
Go follow me on X at @sav_says. That's where I put all of my live reporting, or, here on the Chris Hand Radio Show.
Oh, I love it. That's Savannah Hernandez. She's one of the best. I appreciate you, Sav. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.
That's Savannah Hernandez. Great reporter. Follow her on Twitter at @sav_says. And I got to tell you about a great sponsor on the Chris Hand Show, Kingdom Fence Company. They want their fence to tell the story of your land. Listen, if you need a fence, call my friend Dave. He can get you set up no matter what you need, whether it's a stacked fence, a board fence, a pool fence, a dog fence, a chain link fence, privacy fence. They do it all. Residential, commercial, even agricultural. New, repair, or insurance claim. Call Kingdom Fence Company, 615-390-5891. 615-390-5891. Kingdom Fence Company, LLC.com.
Got a crash blocking the right shoulder, 40 eastbound, just past Spence Lane. And there's been a sinkhole rescue in Middle Tennessee. We'll tell you about it coming up at 11 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
That's Ken Weaver in the newsroom on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I was sent a message to Savannah. Anytime we have a guest, I always send him a message. I'm like, hey, thanks for coming on. And she said, sorry, I was nonstop today. I had coffee before y'all called. I was like, I thought you were on fire. I love it. You know, you got to keep that focus on illegal immigration, man. We got 8 days to go. The southern border is wide open. And I don't know why. But 60 Minutes had the bright idea to have Tom Homan on yesterday.
Oh, really?
And I love this guy. Tom Homan, he was the head of ICE during the Trump administration. But they kept trying to, like, bait him into these questions and make him look bad. And Tom is so based. He's so based. They wanted to talk about mass deportations. And how can we do that without separating families?
We have seen one estimate that says it would cost $88 billion to deport 1 million people a year.
I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Is that what American taxpayers should expect?
What price do you put on national security? Is that worth it?
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
I love it. I love it.
That's how you do it.
And he doesn't take the bait. And they kept trying to bait him. They kept trying to make him look bad. But Tom, it's like he's like, I've heard all of these questions before, by the way. And he's just top notch.
I hear a lot of people say, the talk of a mass deportation is racist. It's threatening to the immigrant community. It's not threatening to the immigrant community. It should be threatening to the illegal immigrant community. But on the heels of historic illegal immigration crisis, that has to be done.
He's right, He's right. It has to be done. And there's only one candidate promising to do it. There's another candidate who's still currently in the White House flying illegal aliens into small towns like Logansport, Indiana. Which way? Hey, on the way, I do want to cover this Trump-Joe Rogan interview. Is Kamala Harris going to go on the Joe Rogan podcast? He says doubtful.
And right? Kamala Harris has not said yes yet.
She hasn't said no either. People keep saying she said no. I said smart. I would have a conversation with her like a human being. That's all I want to do. That's literally all I want to do.
That's trouble.
I want to know what is it like to be. I don't even give a about all the stuff she's talked about policies and all these different things. We know her positions. Yeah. Like, who are you?
Yeah, that's what we're wondering. She's not going to go on that podcast. There's no way. Trump did, though, and he has a lot to say. From the polls to how he appoints people in 2016 versus how he's going to change that process in 2024. We'll cover it next. It's 11 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Eleven o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Right now in Middle Tennessee, crews in Rutherford County have rescued someone who fell 80 feet into a sinkhole at a local cave.
It happened at Snail Shell Cave in Rockville. Rescuers say the person was part of a Middle Tennessee State University student group, and that person fell through a large sinkhole near the mouth of the cave. Rutherford County Fire and Rescue and Rutherford County Emergency Medical Services rescued the student using a high-angle rope rescue operation. The student was flown to Vanderbilt University Medical Center. Joan Jones, WTN News.
Well, the Quarter Pounder is returning to the hundreds of McDonald's locations where it was pulled last week. You won't even have to ask your server to hold the onions. McDonald's has ruled out beef patties as the source of an E. coli outbreak that sickened at least 75 people, left one dead. The focus instead has been on the raw slivered onions that came on the burger. The 900 restaurants that received slivered onions from Taylor Farms Quarter Pounders will be sold without them. Despite the hefty fines and prison sentences handed to people convicted of aiming high-intensity lights at airborne helicopters and planes, Pilots continue to file reports of laser strikes. Here's Jim Ryan, who says the potential for disaster is rising.
The reports come from pilots of small planes.
Yeah, we're getting the green laser right now.
Commercial jetliner.
We just encountered a laser 3 miles.
Even military aircraft.
Green laser.
Green laser, okay.
The audio from liveatc.net. Houston Sheriff's helicopter pilot David Wren says,
if they're in takeoff, landing, or coming in for an approach, and they have no reference to the ground, they could crash.
So far this year, 9,000 laser strikes have been reported to the FAA.
Recession worries may be fading. If you're looking at the latest survey from NABE, the National Association for Business Economics Business Condition Survey Report, claims to find companies had a positive outlook overall. Chief economist at CoreLogic, speaking on behalf of NABE, told ABC News the participants felt confident enough to make major decisions on investments now.
Fewer respondents are expecting recession, so the probability of recession, almost half of them, or about half of them, put the probability of a recession at 25% or lower.
Participating companies added they're also still looking to fill positions with qualified workers. And if you're trying to plan a Thanksgiving feast without breaking the bank, there are ways you can save. Retailers duking it out early this year to get a slice of your spending on Thanksgiving dinner. Here's Elizabeth Schulze.
Target is announcing it will offer a Thanksgiving meal that will serve 4 people for $20. That's $5 less than last year. This deal features 7 items, including an up to 10-pound turkey, green beans, stuffing, mixed potatoes, and gravies.
4 people for $20? That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Hey, what's up? It's Chris Hand from 99.7 WTN. If you're thinking about advertising this year in 2025 and beyond, you have to combine the power of radio with the power of digital. We do it here flawlessly, and our sales team can hook you up with a package tailored to your exact needs. So if you want to advertise, advertise with me. Advertise with 99.7 WTN. Go to the website for more info, 997wtn.com/epic.
$11:06 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. But did you say it is $20 for 4?
Yeah, $20 for it's a turkey with sides and stuffing and all that kind of stuff for a family of 4.
Is it $20 total or $20 each?
$20 total.
Is that real?
According to Ken Weaver's award-winning newscast.
All right, that's crazy.
We're speculating. I wonder if it might be like a Cornish game hen. It's not a full turkey, but
it might be. It might be. Donald Trump sitting down with Joe Rogan over the weekend. Incredible. 3 hours. 3 hours long. Trump said, Kamala couldn't do it.
One of the things I like about doing a show like this, can you imagine Kamala doing this show?
I could imagine her doing this show.
She'd be laying on the floor.
She was supposed to do it, and she might still do it, and I hope she does.
She's not going to.
I will talk to her like a human being. I would try to have a conversation with her. If she did this kind of an interview
with you, I hope she does, because it would be a mess. She'd be laying on the floor comatose. You'd be saying, call in the medics.
I think we'd have a fine conversation. I think I'd be able to talk to her. I wouldn't try to interview her. I'd just try to have a conversation with her and hopefully get to know her as a human being.
I love the way Joe Rogan tries to keep it PC. He's like, listen, I'm still trying to get the interview. It's like, so I can't.
Yeah, it's funny when Joe Rogan's keeping it PC.
He's like, I can't go but so hard on Kamala Harris, But
she'd be laying on the floor.
She'd be laying on the floor. Could you imagine? I hope she does. It'd be a total mess. It'd be a total mess.
So good.
There was so many funny moments like that during the interview with Joe Rogan. But I think some of the best stuff was just kind of hearing him talk. Again, the way Rogan said he wanted to hear Kamala talk, you heard that from Trump, talking like a human being. Though this wouldn't be the first time you've heard it from Trump, I think that we kind of have grown to expect that from Trump, that you're going to get real, authentic reaction and opinion from him. We don't get those cookie-cutter politician answers. But the topic turned to the polls. And Donald Trump said, let me tell you about the polls.
You know how polls are done? I'm going to get myself in trouble, but so I really don't believe too much in them. So
2016 taught a lot of people about the ineffective.
Well, they were very
use of
ineffective,
polls.
because I thought I was doing well. I'd go to a place and I'd have 30, 40,000 people. Hillary would go, they have 500 people, and they tell me I'm going to lose. I said, why am I going to lose? I had 40,000 people. She had 200 people. But, I have a theory. These pollsters, they charge you a lot of money, too. They charge you $500,000 to do some stupid poll, and they interview like 251 people. I don't think they interview them in many cases. I don't want to get myself in too much trouble.
You think it's bullshit?
No, I think they sit there, they make a deal, they get $500,000, and they say, Trump's leading 51-49. They announce it, and everybody says, oh.
I love it. He's like, they're BS. Like, people are making a lot of money off these polls. And then they say Trump is leading. Oh. I think that might have been my favorite line.
And everybody says, oh. Do you understand? I think in a lot, look, I'm a very common sense person. I think that they probably don't always poll. Some of them probably never poll. What's the difference between 49 to 51 and 47.5?
Well, it's also a tiny percentage of the population. I don't think it's representative of the overall population. I just don't think
I don't know of one person in my whole life that ever got called by a pollster.
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah, I've been called once by a pollster. Once. And they were like, this is what killed me. This was this election season. I got a call. Hey, we're doing a poll. Perfect. Count me in. They said, does anybody at your household work in TV, radio, or anything like that? And I said, yes. Gotta go. I was like, darn. It's like, all right, well, if you call me back, I'm going to lie next time. I just wanted to get the answer, like the questions, what kind of questions are they asking? So I'm interested in that. And I think Trump may have some points on polls being BS. I think you can point to history and prove that polls are BS. But the conversation then goes to the experience walking into the White House. What was it like walking into the White House your first time?
The biggest thing was just that first moment of being in this it was really a hallowed place to me. It was surreal. It was beyond. To me, that was the experience. It was a surreal experience. And then with time, that wears off. With time, it becomes, your place where you stay. And I was doing I had two things that I really focused on: governing the country and survival. Because from the moment I won, before I got to office, all of a sudden, they came down. Nobody has ever been treated that way. And you see that. You see where in the Washington Post very early on they said, well, now the impeachment stuff starts. And it did. It literally started from the beginning. So I had survival and run the nation. I had a combination. Most people don't have the survival; they get in.
No, it's interesting that's his mindset, survival and run the nation. And listen, it was a good mindset to have because a lot of people were very, very unhappy that Donald Trump was in there. And he talks about the process of appointing people in 2016, right? How you get in there and you have to make all these appointments. And, he's doing that surrounded by people that don't like him. But he talks about the process, how many people he has to appoint.
How many appointments did you have to make?
Well, you have actually 10,000 appointments. Now, they're different. You have big ones, and then they appoint 100 people and 200 people. But the president really is involved with approximately 10,000 appointments. So you'll appoint a secretary of state, and he or she will appoint a lot of people. So it's a lot. But in terms of major ones, you probably have like 100, but they're big ones. Treasury, state, military.
And how did you know who to appoint?
Well, I didn't. I had no experience. You have to understand, Joe.
So
I was there 17 times in Washington, and I never stayed over. According to the press, which I think is probably right, over the years, I was only there 17 times. I never stayed over. So now I'm sitting there, I'm saying, this place is gorgeous, but, I don't know anybody.
So he gets in there. He's got all these appointments to make, and he doesn't know anybody. And I think one of the things that we could all criticize Donald Trump on with his first administration was putting the wrong people in the wrong positions. And names come to mind like John Bolton, right? Everybody understands that John Bolton is a neocon and loves war. Trump talked about John Bolton and how he got his gig.
The biggest mistake I made was I picked some people. I picked some great people, but you don't think about that. I picked some people that I shouldn't have picked. I picked a few people that I shouldn't have picked. And
neocons?
Yeah, neocons, or bad people, or disloyal people, or
people that were just
people
bad,
that were into the
people got bad advice.
Yeah, you're reading about him a little bit today. A guy like Kelly, who was a bully, but a weak person. You know more about bullies than anybody probably around because you deal in a certain sport where the bullies are exposed very quickly.
Yeah.
But he's bad. Bolton was an idiot, but he was great for me because I'd go in with a guy like a John Bolton. John Bolton. A friend of mine called me up. I was picking Bolton, and he's a very smart guy. His name is Phil Ruffin. He's a very rich guy from Las Vegas. He's a great card player. He doesn't play cards, but he's a great player. He's just a natural. Got poker sense, right? The good old poker sense. And Phil Ruffin is a very, very wise kind of a guy, and one of the richest people around, and has had great success and understands people. So it was in that I was picking Bolton, or I picked Bolton. He called up. He said, "Don't pick him. Why? He's a bad guy." Now, he wasn't in politics at all. He's in various businesses. He said, "He's a bad guy. It always works out bad with that guy." And I said, "Oh, man, I wish you told me this 2 weeks ago. I already hired him. He's here." And he was right. But he was good in a certain way. He's a nut job. And every time I had to deal with a country, when they saw this whack job standing behind me, they said, "Oh, man, Trump's going to go to war with us." He was with Bush when they went stupidly into the Middle East. They should have never done it. I used to say it as a civilian. So I always got more publicity than other people.
So he's talking about the appointing the wrong people. And I love that he's looking at his past presidential term with that kind of clear view, right? And he's accepting what he's done that has been an error and how he's going to change that. And I want to point out, they are changing the appointment process, okay? RFK was talking over the weekend, and he made the statement that Trump is actually privately funding his own transition team.
Donald Trump specifically about this, and he said to me, I said, "Look, the last time you were in there, you put John Bolton in charge of NSA and Mike Pompeo in charge of the CIA and the State Department, and you put an oil guy, in charge of Department of Interior, a coal guy in charge of EPA, and a telecom lobbyist in charge of FCC and pharma lobbyists as head of HHS and FDA, Scott Gottlieb. And he said, here's the difference. He said, when I got in last time, I had no idea how to govern. And I got surrounded by donors and corporate people who said, you appoint this guy and appoint that guy. And he said, I appointed a lot of bad people. Now, I was listening this morning to this extraordinary interview that Donald Trump did with Joe Rogan yesterday. And he said during that interview, he talked specifically about John Bolton. He said, a donor got me to appoint him. And he said, he's a great guy. He turned out, and this is what he said. He said, he's a really bad guy. And he said, this time, I'm not going to do that. He told us that. And what he did, he didn't just promise that, but he did something no other president's done before. Normally, the transition team is not created until November 6th because GAO, the General Accounting Office, pays for all the costs of the transition team. Trump said, I'm not going to do it this time. I'm not going to do it their way. I'm going to start my own transition team 3 months early. And he got private donors.
The change is huge, right? You get that. Normally, you don't start your transition team until after the election. Trump said, no, we're starting way before then. And what that's going to enable them to do is hit the ground running with the right people. And Tulsi Gabbard put it this way, it's also going to stop the Democrats and Joe Biden's Government Accountability Office from being able to spy on Trump's transition team. I love this from Tulsi Gabbard. Her explaining the huge difference in Trump having this team ready to go right now.
I don't know if you've seen some of the headlines, Bobby, but over the last few days, there have been some articles written by the mainstream media talking about members, Democrats in Congress and others in the Biden administration who are expressing their grave concern about the fact that President Trump is doing something that has not been done before in what Bobby just talked about, that he has a privately funded transition team that is already getting to work. And they're like, well, how come he's not using taxpayer dollars for this and going through the Government Accountability Office? Something is very wrong here. Well, we should all have hope and how freaked out they are, because we're not allowing Joe Biden's Government Accountability Office to control President Trump's transition team. But this is what we're talking about. They're freaking out because they can't place their moles within the transition team to try to figure out what Donald Trump is doing so that they can spin up their media propaganda machines and try to preempt and undermine the work that we are doing to bring great patriots together to actually fix the government.
I don't know about you, but this gives me a lot of hope and a lot of excitement when you think about what that means and how they're going to hit the ground running if Trump wins next Tuesday. It's going to be historic. And the way they're doing it right now is already different than how they've done it in years past. And I really do appreciate Trump understanding the failures of that first term and not being willing to make the same mistakes again. I think that is massive. Absolutely massive. It's 11:21 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So next Tuesday, we do have our big election night watch party, and we want you to join us there down at the James E. Ward Agricultural Building at the Wilson County Fairgrounds in Lebanon, Tennessee. Our friends at the Glock Store are going to be there. They're your party experts. If you need to throw a party, whether it's a birthday party or a retirement celebration or even just corporate team building, do it at the Glock Store. These guys know how to throw a party, and when they heard we were throwing another one, they said, we want in. And we're going to bring some prizes. The guys at the Glock Store are bringing some great prizes, including their tactical hydration mugs. They're also going to be giving away a second prize of a 3-session range card. And the first prize that you could win just by showing up to our election night watch party is the Trump Take America Back Glock 19. This thing is laser engraved with Trump's likeness, an American flag, the seal of the president, and it may just be the prettiest gun I have ever seen. You can win it for free just by showing up to our party at the Wilson County Fairgrounds on Tuesday, Election Day, November 5th. We want you there. Our friends at the Glock Store are doing a fantastic job bringing these prizes to us. And if you want to set up a party at the Glock Store, all you got to do is hit the website, glockstore.com. That's the Glock Store, minutes from the airport, worth the drive from anywhere.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
Guilty pleas from the man accused of killing a Memphis jogger. We'll tell you about it at 11:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken Weaver. It's 11:25 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm Chris Hand. So there's been a lot of meltdown from the left because of the Joe Rogan interview. And I will say this, the Joe Rogan HQ Twitter channel, that's where they post all the podcast stuff. They've been hilarious, reacting in real time to some of this stuff. Like quite a few Democrats, totally sane, not unhinged, have been suggesting that Joe Rogan realized during the interview that Donald Trump staged his own assassination attempt. This is actually happening on Twitter. People are saying this. The Joe Rogan podcast Twitter account said, TDS, fascinating to watch. No need to give the people who spew it exposure, but the mental gymnastics they play, 10 out of 10. I love Trump staged his assassination attempt. Like, okay, tell that to the wife of Corey Comparator, right? Tell that to the other two individuals that caught bullets. The TDS is real. There was another guy, Ed Krasentine. I don't know, if you're on Twitter as chronically as I am, you probably know Ed Krasentine. He's just a rabid leftist. And he was suggesting that the entire interview was staged. It was just a hoax. He said, did Joe Rogan give Trump the questions, topics in advance? It certainly sounds like it to me. Imagine if Kamala did this. To which the Joe Rogan Twitter account said, weak people like Ed find creative ways to support their own delusion. This guy, deaf peas sitting down. I love it. I love the reaction. But one of the best reactions from it wasn't from a leftist. It wasn't from a conservative. It was from a veteran who had been wounded in action. Clint Trial. This is a name that you should be familiar with. This is a hero, and he lost both of his legs in 2019 by in Afghanistan stepping on an IED, and it's horrific. It's awful, and Clint took it upon himself to share a memory he has with Donald Trump, and the Joe Rogan podcast account reposted this, and I want to bring it to you. Clint posted, since his election season, I thought I would share this once again for those who may still be uncertain who to vote for. The man you saw on the Joe Rogan show last night is the man who came to visit me in the hospital after I was wounded. I've tried to tell people that the media only shows an incredibly inaccurate depiction of this man. Most no longer need convincing, but there are still millions who simply refuse to unplug their attention from mainstream cable media. I hope many of you will begin to see just how much BS propaganda we've all been fed, how corrupt the machine is, and why this man is so hated by that very machine. Quite simply, he's the biggest threat to the machine. The system, it's the biggest threat the system has ever faced. And with us behind him, the once unbeatable machine is losing steady pressure. And he tagged Donald Trump in this video. And the video is Clint Trial in a hospital bed, missing both of his legs, being awarded a Purple Heart by President Trump.
This is to certify that the President of the United States of America has awarded the Purple Heart, established by General George Washington at Newburgh, New York, August 7th, 1782, to Master Sergeant Clinton D. Trial, United States Marine Corps, for wounds received in action on January 12th, 2019 in Afghanistan.
I'm going to take this myself.
Trump picks up the Purple Heart, and he pins it to the shirt of Clint Trial. And it's an incredible video, and the moment isn't one that's ever shared. And just the love that's expressed by Trump in this video, even at the end, beautiful family. But what you can't translate via the radio is Trump has his hand on this man's back, and he's there for this guy when he's sitting in a hospital bed at probably one of his lowest points. Trump made it a point to get there and be there and show up for him. And that's what the American people need to understand. We're going to elect a leader in 8 days. Do you want someone that shows up for the American citizens, for our American veterans? Or do you want someone who can't even show up while she's on her own campaign trail, who's taking days off during what could be one of the biggest campaigns? It's the biggest campaign of her life. She's taking days off. And where's she been the last 3.5 years? She hasn't had your back. She hasn't had my back, and she certainly hasn't had our military's back. I got more clips from this Joe Rogan podcast on the way. He talks about teaming up with RFK, and he actually makes an admission on whether or not he's committed to having RFK in his administration. I'll bring all that to you next. It's 11:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
$11:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. And right now in Memphis, Channel 4 says the man accused of killing jogger Eliza Fletcher, that is in court, and that Cleotha Henderson has pleaded guilty to the charges in Fletcher's death. She was kidnapped while out for an early morning jog in September 2022. A few days later, her body was found. Henderson was already sentenced to 80 years in prison for the 2021 kidnapping and rape of Alicia Franklin. A nationwide search for a man accused of killing a hiker in Monroe County. Nicholas Wayne Hamlet is the suspect. Authorities say Hamlet killed a hiker in Tellico Plains, then used a fake name to report a hiker in distress to 911. This happening 2 Fridays ago. He's considered armed and dangerous. They say he has ties to Kentucky, Florida, Alaska, and Montana, but he's wanted for a parole violation out of Alabama. And folks in East Nashville hoping police make an arrest soon in the beating death of a man 2 weeks ago. This man telling Channel 4,
I walk around here a lot with my dog, and I've never had anything happen to me. I've never seen anything crazy like that. It's tough to lose somebody like that. I've never been threatened or anything, so I feel like I'm generally pretty safe. I walk during daylight hours. But yeah, I'm concerned for other people living nearby.
Police say surveillance cameras caught a man attacking 59-year-old James Sutton, who suffered serious head and spinal cord injuries and later died. Images of this suspect all over social media with numbers to call. There is a reward up to $5,000 being offered through Crime Stoppers. And if you're trying to plan a Thanksgiving feast without breaking the bank, there are ways you can save. Retailers duking it out early this year to get a slice of your spending on Thanksgiving dinner, says Elizabeth Scholze.
Grocers are rolling back prices to compete with shoppers who are on a budget. Walmart is promoting a so-called inflation-free Thanksgiving, 29 items to feed 8 people for under $7 a person. Sam's Club members meal feeds 10 at about $10 a person. And it can be delivered to your house pre-cooked, so it only takes 2 hours to heat up. And Aldi is offering its lowest prices since 2019, a meal for 10, including a butterball turkey, at just under $5 per person.
That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Thank you, Ken. It's 11:33 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm Chris Hand, and I can't be the only one doing this. Heat in the morning, AC in the afternoon. I feel like we've all been going through this cycle. And if your system isn't working the best way, the Busy Bee way, it's time to call them and get that annual maintenance done. So that way you don't have a problem popping up when you need your heater the most. It is getting colder. And before you know it, you're going to have that heater running full time. Have you gotten it maintained? Is it in tippy-toppy shape? Call Busy Bee. They'll take a look. And when you call them, sign up for the Beehive Club membership. That's the best value in home heating and cooling. You get 3 annual tune-ups, 1 for your heating, 1 for your cooling, 1 for your plumbing. 10% discount on all repairs, priority, front-of-the-line service, a $100 annual accrued replacement credit with a maximum of $1,000, no overtime or holiday fees, and exclusive Beehive member promotions. All of that for only $99. It pays for itself instantly. Call Busy Bee, your Root Pro partner today, 615-775-7833, 615-775-7833. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, online at busybeehvac.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Matt Murphy in the middle of downtown Franklin, Tennessee. We've talked so much about Savory Spice. I thought, why not show you the place? So let's go on in and see what's popping at Savory Spice. As I've always said, you will smell the spices even before you walk in. I can smell them right here in the doorway. Come on in, and let's introduce you to the one and only Holly, who is the owner and proprietor of Savory Spice. Say hey, Holly.
Hello, everyone.
Now, enough about Holly. Let's talk about spicy and easy products like the incredible taco soup, which, as I said, you put this in a crock pot, you put all the ingredients that it tells you to buy right there, you put the spices in, and it's so easy. So if you don't know what you're doing around the kitchen, it's a perfect way to find your way around the kitchen, as is the Mediterranean dill risotto. Now, for the holidays, pumpkin pie spice. What doesn't it have, Holly?
Pumpkin.
Doesn't have any pumpkin in it. That's a fun fact for all of you kids out there. Now, if you stop by Savory Spice, either in the Franklin location or at L&L Market, you can get yourself a sample of the dill dip, which is my absolute favorite. Just tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Savory Spice with purchase now. So come by Franklin or L&L Market in Nashville and come see Holly and the entire crew at Savory Spice.
The rebels are Republicans now. They're like, you want to be a rebel, you want to be punk rock, you want to buck the system. You're a conservative now. That's how crazy. And then the liberals are now pro silencing criticism. They're pro censorship online. They're talking about regulating free speech and that regulating the First Amendment. It's bananas to watch.
Joe, they come after their political opponent.
Well, they
I
do.
got more guys. I always say, I kid, but I'm not kidding. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the meanest of them all. He'd kill you in 2 seconds if he didn't like you, right? I've been under investigation more than Alphonse Capone, only because it's political opponent stuff. And I've won. I won the big case in Florida. I'm winning the other stuff. You win, but you know what they did? They did something that's only done in third world countries. They came after their political opponent.
Yes.
I could have put Crooked Hillary in jail.
Well, not only that, but they're weaponizing it by saying that that's what you're going to do once you get in office.
Isn't it great?
By ignoring what they're doing right now.
That's Joe Rogan and Donald Trump. Heck of a podcast over the weekend. 3 hours. Joe making the point that I've made many times on this show before. Yeah, we're the new rebels. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name's Chris Hand. You want to be a rebel? I always laugh. Every generation rebels. Every generation rebels. Well, the new rebellion is being conservative, Christian, not having premarital sex and kids out of wedlock. A heck of a rebellion. It's a rebellion that'll bring the country back, but that's the new rebellion. Joe Rogan making that exact same point. I heard that and I was like, yep, nailed it. He's exactly right. We are the new rebels. And it's creating a counterculture where being conservative is cool. It has never been cool until this point in history to be conservative. It's cool. It really is. It's cool with the youth. It's cool with the older crowd. It's crossing generations. It's cool now. We're on the right track. And this next generation coming up, I think they're going to be some of the most conservative that we've ever seen. And it's because we made it cool. Counterculture, man. It's crazy. They talked about a lot. I played a moment ago, Trump talking about, his errors in the transition team in 2016, putting the wrong people in the wrong spots, like John Bolton, like Mike Pompeo, like John Kelly. And I love that he's looking at that, and he's not looking at it through any kind of ego tint. He's like, yeah, that was an error, and I'm going to correct it. And then I played some clips of RFK and Tulsi talking about how, months ago, Trump started his transition team privately. He started figuring out who he's going to appoint for what months ago. That's pretty cool. You're not going to be trying to get a team together come November 7th, right? Your team is going to be ready to hit the ground running. And Trump is there. And RFK is a big part of that. And he was asked about the team up with RFK.
First of all, I love this idea of you teaming up with Robert Kennedy.
Right.
And I love this Make America Healthy Again idea, because there are chemicals and ingredients in our food that are illegal in other countries because they've been shown to be toxic. There's pesticides and herbicides, and there's a lot of that's been sprayed on our food that really is unnecessary, and there's a lot of health consequences that people are suffering from a lot of these things.
Yeah, and I like that RFK is in the administration. He's taking the MAHA, the Make America Healthy Again, and teaming up with Trump. I love that. Everything he said there is true. You know it. I know it. Heck, half the countries in Europe know it. More than half, because all the stuff that's in our food is banned over there. But is RFK going to be in the administration? I mean, I think that's one of the important questions, right? It's nice to team up with him on the campaign trail, but are you actually going to give him a job?
I was actually talking to RFK today, and he told me that more than 70% of young men are ineligible for the military because of their health.
I could see it.
That's crazy.
A lot of it's obesity.
This is why we need a guy like RFK in the administration to help get this country healthy again. I mean, you look at old photos from the beach in like the 50s and the 60s. Spot somebody that's obese. this isn't just a America's been lazy kind of thing. This is a direct assault on the population via the food system. So is RFK going to be working in the administration? Are you committed to that?
I love the fact that you guys teamed up.
Yeah.
And are you completely committed to have him a part of your administration?
Oh, I am. But the only thing I want to be a little careful about with him is the environmental. Because, he doesn't like oil. I love oil and gas. I think
just keep him out of that.
To fire. So I'm going to sort of keep him out of a little. I said, focus on health. Focus. Yeah. You can do whatever you want. But I got to be a little bit careful with the liquid gold,
I understand. But listen, there's plenty of good work that could be done if you focus on health.
Exactly. And this is one of the best things about the RFK team up, right? That there's stuff that they disagree on. There's plenty that they disagree on. Okay, well, let's find what we do agree on, and we'll have you focus there, and you can make a real difference. And I think a guy like RFK is going to make a real difference, whether he's in charge of the CDC, the FDA, HHS, you name it. A guy like RFK can make a huge difference. And I also like the realization that Trump has, I'm not going to let him near energy. No, we're not going Green New Deal on you. But there's a lot of points that RFK makes, especially when it comes to health, that are really hard to refute. And this next question kind of leads right into that. The fact that he's even working with RFK makes a lot of people upset. And Rogan asked him, are people upset that you're working with RFK?
Do you have anyone that is pressuring you to not work with him? Have there been people that are reaching RFK Jr.?
Yes.
Yes, I would imagine. Because financially, he could put a dent.
I would say that, and, I think in many ways they've done a good job. In many ways they've done a bad job. But I would say that the Big Pharma wasn't thrilled when they heard that, I have a relationship. I've actually always gotten along very well with him. I've known him a long time. He's a different kind of a guy. He's very smart, great guy. And he's very sincere about this. I mean, he really is, he thinks we spend a fortune on pesticides and all this stuff, and then you end up with that chart is a terrible chart, the one previous. It's such a bad chart when you look at where we are compared to other countries that don't spend 10 cents.
Right.
So, and you save a lot of money. But, yeah, I've had some people that aren't exactly thrilled. You can imagine, right?
Sure.
It's a good question, actually.
Well, certainly if it
doesn't affect me.
Some pharmaceutical drugs that have been prescribed that have negative consequences that these people have been profiting off of, and then you have a guy like RFK Jr. who spends an enormous amount of time highlighting those things. You could say how they'd be very reluctant to have you support him.
I would say that's an understatement.
It's an understatement. And that's how you know he's putting the right people in the right positions, right? If the guys over at the drug companies are a bit upset that RFK is going to be in the administration, you're doing the right thing. It's a bit of an understatement. I also liked, and I don't know if you missed it because they were kind of talking over each other. He's like, "Are people mad that you're gonna have RFK in there?" He said,
"It doesn't affect me.
It doesn't affect me." And if there's anything that you could look at with Donald Trump, people being upset, people saying mean things doesn't affect him. It just doesn't affect him. I love it. I think one of the most viral clips about. From the podcast was about the publicity that Trump has received and Joe Rogan breaking it down for him. Trump says he doesn't know how he got all the publicity he's gotten, and Joe Rogan said, well, I know.
So I always got more publicity than other people, and it wasn't like I was trying. In fact, I don't know exactly why. Maybe you can tell me why.
Oh, I could definitely tell you. You said a lot of wild
Maybe.
He said a lot of wild and then CNN, in all their brilliance, by highlighting your wild made you much more popular.
Yeah.
And they boosted you in the polls because people were tired of someone talking in this bullshit, pre-prepared politician lingo. And even if they didn't agree with you, they at least knew whoever that guy is, that's him. That's really him.
He's right. He's right. You can't question if Donald Trump is not Donald Trump, right? He's always going to tell you exactly how he's feeling.
Yeah. When you see certain people talk, certain people in the public eye, you don't know who they are. You have no idea who they are. It's very difficult to know. You see them in conversations. They have these pre-planned answers. They say everything. It's very rehearsed. You never get to the meat of it. one of the beautiful things about you is that you free ball. Like, you get out and you do these huge events, and you're just talking and you're making. We've highlighted you on the show many times when you did this Biden impression where he's walking around, he doesn't know what he's doing. It's funny. It's stand up. It's funny stuff. But it's like you and you were making fun of Elon one time. You were doing an Elon impression. It's great. You have like comedic instincts. Like when you said to Hillary, "You'd be in jail." Like that's great timing. Yeah. But it's like that kind of stuff was unheard of as a politician. Like no one had done that. And I think...
it's funny. You need at least the attitude of a comedian when you're doing this business. This is a very dangerous business, first of all. It's a very tough business.
It's the most dangerous business.
It's the most, well, for a job?
Yes. I mean, other than going to war and being a firefighter or being a cop, it's the most dangerous business.
It's the most dangerous. Being president is the most dangerous.
Especially you. I mean, you haven't even got to the election. There's been 2 assassination attempts, and they've brushed those out of the news like it was nothing.
Yeah, they'd rather not talk about them.
Imagine if there was assassination attempts on Biden, how hard people would be attacking the right, how they would be trying to get guns taken away from people. They would try to ramp up gun laws. They would try to figure out some way to blame you. If there was attacks on, if Biden got shot in the ear, we would have never heard the end of it.
No, and Joe's absolutely right. Joe's absolutely right. And if the Kamala team heard this interview with Trump on the Joe Rogan podcast, we're never going to see her on this, ever. Again, Joe was asked about Kamala going on the podcast, and he said, well, they didn't say no. They didn't exactly say no. And he's like, yeah, but it's not going to happen.
And
Kamala Harris has not said yes yet.
She hasn't said no either. People keep saying she said no. I said
smart.
I would have a conversation with her like a human being. That's all I want to do. That's literally all I want to do.
That's trouble.
I want to know what is it like to be. I don't even give a about all the stuff she's talked about policies and all these different things. We know her positions. Yeah. Like, who are you?
Yeah, who are you? We got 8 days to go. And the question America wants to know for Kamala Harris, who are you? Not a good sign. It's 11:51 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, I'm Joan Jones on Super Talk 99.7. And the dual power of radio and digital has always been such a plus for our advertisers. So if you're thinking about your 2025 plans, make sure you check us out at 997wtn.com/epic. Go there now.
11:58 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand, in studio with Matt Murphy. We were talking outfits for the election party.
Hello, Chris.
What's up? I think this is our first time talking outfits.
Yeah, you got to figure it out.
We got to coordinate.
Big night.
I want to go.
It's like prom night.
I wish I had the gear. I want dark MAGA. You know what I mean? Like Trump walking into the Undertaker theme in Traverse City with the gold tie, black suit.
So good.
Black hat, gold.
So good.
Gold make America great again.
Well, I got the, I'm a little torn because Belle has convinced me that no one's going to want my Trump shoes if I'm wearing them. I tend to disagree, but I got to go Trump shoes.
You got to.
I got to go Trump shoes, and I can decide in the moment whether or not we're giving them away. And then I'm thinking a little something on the tie. I told you I don't want to give anything away.
We don't want to give.
But I think that's a pretty good idea. Don't you think
it's a money idea?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good idea.
I like it. I'll be honest with you. There's not too often I'm excited about Murphy's outfit, but the idea he just told me about the election night party, I'm big hype.
And speaking of outfits, if you're not watching on Super Talk TV, I never don't love this hat.
It's the best.
Everything about it.
I'm wearing my
MAGAween hat.
Yep.
You got it until October 31st. Ian and I were driving to Shelbyville yesterday, and the number of Trump signs, oh my goodness gracious, just driving through the back country and watching some of that. The Trump signs and the trunk or treat events yesterday evening. Ooh. At the church, the little churches, little small town churches all over.
Trunk or treat's a different animal out here.
Love it. Love it. Like, yes, let's teach your young children that it's okay to approach a stranger's trunk.
There will be Vance.
and there will be candy. And that's so good.
It's the one time of year. It's the one time of year. Don't get used to it.
I love it. I absolutely love it. But no, the Trump Vance, and you're talking on, modest, meager property, little single wide trailers and the biggest, huge mansions. It's all Trump, Vance, Trump, Vance, Trump. And probably in the state of Tennessee, you would expect this, but it's, I don't know, at least 10-1, if not 15 or 20-1. Trump Vance versus every so often you see the old Harris Wall sign.
I'm still looking for the very, very rare Jill Stein sign. If you see one, send us a picture.
That's very bad. Oh yeah, and just
you don't really see them in the wild.
Don't lose sight of it. That's right.
You don't really see them in
nature. You can find them in they grow them in confinement. Yeah. They raise them in confinement, but you can't really find one in a while.
No. Murphy's in next. It's 12:01 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.